So, one of the questions that I got asked recently, and I've been asked quite a few times in the past, is how do we deal with what is directly in our face, especially when it's something unwanted? So, an example would be I want this specific person to love me, but they are not paying attention to me and blocking me. Or I want financial abundance and I'm trying to change my living situation, which is aligned with the question that I was recently asked on a video. But my living situation is constantly in my face every day. This unwanted desire is like always right in my face. Like, how do I deal with this? And so the video today is to really talk about the choices that we have and how by taking a step back and looking at your choices, being honest about the way that you're feeling now and what you're focusing on can make a huge difference in your life. And I have to say, just I want to start by saying I've had a very similar issue. I still have events in my life today that are ones that are unwanted, and I give them way too much attention, right? They live way too much rent free in my own head. And I realize that. And it's okay to be honest with yourself about those feelings that you have and the focus that you're giving and where you're placing your attention because you can only change something once you become aware of it. So the more that you pay attention to it, the more that you give yourself that allowance to say, okay, I see this and it's something I want to change, it's something I want to work on, then you actually have the ability to do so. And in any event, we have a choice. You have the choice of the way you're going to let it affect you. You have the choice of the way you're going to perceive the event. And you have a choice in what you're going to allow to be in your own mind. Now, I am talking about events like what I mentioned before. Traumatic events in the experience, and a lot of times after them, it does not feel like you have a choice. Now you have a choice of what to do once that passes and how to manage those things. But if that's something you're dealing with, I definitely recommend that you go work with like a licensed therapist to start working through any post-traumatic stress that you're dealing with so that you can process it and move on. Now, what happens a lot of times is that when people are looking at stuff I'm talking about, I want financial abundance, but I'm not seeing it. Or I want this loved person and I'm not seeing it. I want to feel more confident, but every day I'm faced with not being treated very well. I want to go to my dream college, but I keep getting rejection letters. It's right in your face all the time, right? This external event is in your face all the time. How do you deal with that? The first thing to do is to be honest with yourself about the way that you're currently feeling about it. A lot of times, especially in the law of assumption community, people promote squashing these feelings and not feeling them and ignoring them. The problem is that you're not actually ignoring them. You're fueling them the more that you try to squash them. When you're on a struggle bus and you are like trying to essentially convince yourself that something is not true or the opposite is true, you're fueling this thing that you don't want. This is like that lack mentality. This is putting your focus in kind of the wrong area. This is being your old self and trying to force your old self into a new bottle, right? Instead, get curious about what you're feeling. Why do you feel that way? Do you want to hold on to that feeling or are you ready to release it? And although I talk about law of assumption principles and I talk about law of attraction and Neville Goddard, and I definitely believe those at the core of my being, I also recognize that there is a great service that you can do to yourself by looking at your habits, looking at your identity, looking at the person that you are, your beliefs, your feelings, your emotional intelligence, and your emotional regulation to get those principles to actually work in your life. So that's a lot of what I'm talking about here. How do you learn to make a new choice with where you're putting your attention? How do you learn how to make a choice in what you're going to continue to dwell in? You can always even ask yourself questions. Do I want to hold on to this feeling? If you don't want to, ask, why am I? What am I changing into? What am I becoming? What am I allowing to let go so that new growth can come into my life? What are the possibilities that I see that could come into my life? The more that you lean into this curiosity, the more that you calm your mind. You let those feelings kind of simmer down, you let them kind of move on, but you're not denying them. You're saying, I hear you, part of me that's upset, part of me that doesn't like being ignored, part of me that doesn't like being left unread and not really having a clear idea of what's going on, the part of me that doesn't like not being able to pay my bills or go out to dinner the way I want to, or take trips that I want, or get into the college that I want, or whatever else the list is. I hear you. I hear the feelings that you have about this. Let's work on them. And then you start to make a choice. What are some other perspectives that I could have? What are ways that I could take care of myself in this situation so that I can actually have more of what I want? That's the transformation process. That's when you start to open up your world. That's when you start to get all the amazing things that you're looking for. That's when change starts to happen. So that's what I'm encouraging for you is to really lean into being curious, really start to question what it is that you can and cannot do and what you're focusing on. So I definitely hope that helps.